Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. Today is Wednesday, February 13th, 2017, and this is a very special GoldFish Report. We're doing a special Down Under interview today, and with and also, I would say, Venetian
and up above, and up above.
and up above. So, well, look, you're originally an Aussie, so we're gonna just, it counts. It's all appropriate.
Well, I'm getting used to not walking on my head, so it's just,
It's tough. How is it living upside down, by the way?
it's strange.
Okay.
You get used to it.
So let's just introduce our panel here. We have my co-host Steve, who I haven't seen in a long, long time. So
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Steve. Steve's in Austria, and we have our friend Tim Emslie down under, who's joining us in a blackout. And Tim's going to tell us all about it. Welcome, Tim. How you doing?
Hi, how you going, guys? Yeah, it's really good to be here. And it's completely blacked out. Yeah, there's no street lights. It's 30,000 properties are affected in Sydney. So 9 hours now. So people have got the candles out. There is a benefit to it though. It gets people talking. People who normally wouldn't interact are actually having to interact with each other. So if there's a positive side to it, that's what's coming out. Humanity is interacting.
Do it regularly. We should do it.
You can start telepathically.
Once a month.
Do it regularly.
And I don't know how long I've got.
Till your battery runs out.
My battery went flat.
Yeah, not a problem. But
Oh, we already know you, Tim. It's okay.
Do you have any way to charge it though? I mean, you need the emergency lighting more than you need to be here. So, are you sure you're okay?
I'm fine because I was going to do this in the car with the car running where I could charge it, but for the power outage has dropped out the maximization of the 4G signal, and it's dropped down to about 2 bars. So I must be pulling off another area that's not affected.
Yeah,
from another area of Sydney.
Okay, well, let's get going. Look, let's start with well, welcome both of you, and we're doing this special report because what we wanted to do is we just found ourselves in conversation the other day saying, we need to because we're talking about what's going on in different areas of the world. So Tim is down in Australia, as he said, in Sydney. Steve is in Europe, and I'm in New York. So this is a good time for people who are in different places of the world, and we're kind of anchoring this energy right now, aren't we? All over the globe. We kind of have it pinpointed and anchored, which is really nice. So I wanted to get an idea from everybody. What's really happening geopolitically with your area? What do you see as the prevailing? Because we know that mainstream media is very controlled. We know from Q posts yesterday and the day before, which have been prolific, that there's a regaining of control of the MSM narrative. It is in full. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in a conference. Yeah, you're right.
It's okay. You need to go help somebody. It's okay.
Just don't get mugged, yeah?
It's pretty friendly around here.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So let's start with Tim because his battery has the least life right now.
Yep.
I want to get his input. Tim, what's going on besides this big blackout? We don't know the origin really of it, but what's going on? And are you guys getting the news about what's going on in the U.S. and what about the whole yellow vest movement? Give us an idea of if you feel a change in the climate down there.
Yeah, well, I'm getting the news about the US. I'm not getting much news about the yellow vest movement. To get that, you have to actually search more thoroughly. But from all the people that I'm interacting with who bring news out of the US, like yourself, I'm getting that information. And as for my own government here in Australia, to be honest, I'm not giving it any attention because it to me, it has nothing. There's nothing fruitful from it. No one really knows what they're doing and what's going on. We change prime ministers so quickly that it's easy to lose a lack of respect for the whole governing system. It's not even relevant to my life. And if that's an indicator to you, to tell you what it feels like to be here it's not even relates to, I can't even interrelate to my own government system. I'm more connected to what's going on over in the US and with the front of the war against the cabal as it's indicative. But here in Australia, there's no real information about that. There are a few people who are feeding some stuff to me, but I don't want to go into that because I'm actually living in this continent under these rules and legalities. I'm probably best to leave some of that alone. Yeah.
Why do you guys tell me my headset wasn't plugged in? Okay, well, yeah, that'll be better. The sound will be better. There we go, folks. Gee, well, what happened with these floods, Tim? Can you tell us? And then I'll go to Steve. What happened to these floods? All these, I saw you post a video. Were you in that? Were you in that helicopter?
No. I posted.
Yeah,
we might be losing. Yeah. The picture's good, but we lost his sound. Okay, well, Steve, why don't you wait for Tim to come back in?
What I like to what Tim was saying is that people may not be aware, but the Australian internet is not much different to Saudi Arabia in that it's completely filtered. It's been well over 5 years now since they introduced, on the back of child pornography laws, to censor the internet, and nobody knows what's censored and not. So he's getting filtered internet. So if he gets your and alternative media sources, then he can access international news. But otherwise, stuff like the Yellow Vest movement will be blocked. So, or potentially blocked. I'm not saying it is, but if he's not seeing, then that's an indication. I've sent links to people in Australia before; they haven't been able to open it. So it's just, so that's one of the things. It's Big Brother down there, and it's very unfortunate. It's very unnerving, and and thank God. I mean, over here it's not like that yet, and I hope it doesn't come to the States. But you know, they keep talking about internet censorship. You don't know. I mean, Google censors things all the time. I'm sure people are aware of this, but
right. But you know, I just did a bullet points presentation that is available on BitChute and YouTube. Part 2, the extension of that, is available on Vimeo on demand for our viewers.
Mm-hmm.
It was an analysis. It was a review of presidential powers, and within those powers, what happens is immediately 100 new, I would say, resources or powers become available to the president, okay? And things that he wouldn't ordinarily be able to do. Yeah, Tim is messaging me that he had some problems.
Yeah. Well, he'll come in when he can.
Pop the link here. I can try to get it back. Okay. And within this presidential power, he does have the power to regulate commerce during a national emergency.
So or issue an executive order or something, as far as I understand.
If he shows, well, a national emergency gives him certain powers.
All power,
He can do some things with an executive order, some things he shouldn't do with an executive order. But he does have that ability to use it if he needs to. So he can effectively monitor, and he can censor the internet. He can do that, but he hasn't. He hasn't. That's
well, as long as he's got the power, and I hope he uses it when he needs to. Anyway, let me get back. Go on. What's going to in Europe? The Yellow Vest movement is much larger than any news report is giving in the US or in Europe. Actually, I get a Twitter feed from one of the. I hooked up to one of the French activists, one of the public, basically, that's involved in the Yellow Vests, and they post photos from every Saturday for the last 13 weeks, all over France. Yeah. It's not just in Paris, it's all over France. And you see these huge movements all over France, not being covered. It's been given lip service here. I mean, I'm here in the German-speaking part of the world. I follow the newspapers here, and you see some mention of it. They've dropped it now. They stopped reporting it in the television news, from what I see. So they're suppressing it. They're giving it just enough coverage so they can say we're covering it, or we've covered it, but they're not following it any further. So they don't want to let people know there's a movement. There have been some demonstrations here in Austria, in Germany. I know I've heard of some. So yeah, it's a big movement, and I think what it's about is basically people are on to the globalist agenda, and they're against it. They're standing up, and people have been suffering in France with legislation that's been put in by Macron, and he's completely out of touch with what's going on. And so I think it's a matter of time till he's actually deposed. I'm hoping that's the case, and that'll get things moving over here. That'll get things moving.
Benjamin Fulfer's been reporting that as well for whatever I think his sources might be correct on that, along with a few other people. I also heard Angela Merkel is on her way out, obviously, because
she's still hanging on. She's hanging on.
Yeah, but essentially Germany's kind of just on autopilot because. There you go, Tim. That's what I'm hearing. Is that right? Or Germany's basically on autopilot?
Well, politically, the situation is changing. She lost badly in the last. Her party lost badly because of her, basically, in the last election. There was an election in southern Germany, and it was quite a landslide, actually. So that's why.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't they know she's Hitler's daughter?
I don't know about that, but they certainly know that she's not good for the country. So
it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and she even looks like it, just like in a picture. That
it could be true. It might not be, but it's by the by. She's not for the country, and she has to leave.
Right. So Tim, we see that you're back. Tim, do you have sound on you? We don't.
I do. I'm hearing you. I'm on the iPad now.
Oh.
The app to make it function. So this is good.
You look like you're stable there. If you.
Yeah. Making it work in chaos. So,
I see you have a new do. Tim. Did you
the hair?
Did you always have it shaved on the sides, or is that new?
No, that's a total new thing. And sometimes I like it. Other times I feel like I need to chop the long hair off. But that's okay. I'll see where it goes.
Keep your psychic abilities going. You don't want to lose those. Yeah. So what happened with the? I'm sorry. All right. So let me just go back to Tim because we don't know what's going to happen. Sure. Steve's talking about what's happening in Europe, but what happened with the floods? Can you just inform people, because the video you showed, the video we saw on, and I posted it on the GoldFish Report news page on Facebook, folks. Okay. You can go there and look for news. I just want to interrupt for 1 second though. If people want to get the news, there's 2 news feeds that GoldFish Report has. We have Twitter and we have Facebook. They are on the front page of our website. So the news it's filtered because I'm not going to report. Oh my God, some of the things that I have, documents I have found, articles I have found that are in my research on these topics that I talk about in bullet points. They've been so disgracefully biased against the president. It was like turning my stomach. I couldn't believe how sick it is. So I'm glad. I wanted to just inform our viewers, our blog, thegoldfishreport.blogspot.com, that primarily posts all presidential information, all news releases that I get from my sources at the White House. I post immediately that kind of information, so it's all available right away. But anyway, I'm glad that you do see some of our news feeds, Tim. And in that news feed, I did post this video that you had posted showing a helicopter ride. Now it looked like you were in the helicopter looking and recording.
No, that
wasn't
around the same time. I posted one from a year ago where I was in a helicopter. So you're probably mixing the 2 different things up. So probably. The one with the cattle was nothing to do with me, but it was up in the far north Queensland, out away from the coast. It's not getting much news coverage. Not that I'm actually watching the news, so I can't verify that, but I've asked other people, and it doesn't seem to be a prominent thing, although I haven't even looked at a newspaper to know that. But we got about up around Townsville, which is up near Cairns, which is far north Queensland. We got about 1,000 mil of rain in a short period of time, which is exponentially a huge amount. That's 1,000 litre cube of water. There were people took photos of the garbage bins, the green willy bins. Do you have them in the US out the front?
Garbage bins, yeah. Yeah,
and they've got a lid. They might be green, blue.
Right.
Someone had one of them opened, and the rain had completely filled it.
Whoa.
That's how much rain they got. And so
unheard of.
It was one thing to have the drought and have all these cattle. There's been a lot of cattle stations who have been going around having to shoot their livestock because of the drought, and now we get these massive rains, and all these animals have been caught up in the floods and have drowned, and their bodies are just lying everywhere.
There were just thousands of them, though. It just seemed like such a terrible loss. It was quite unfortunate to see that. And this is the climate change, or is it? Is this geoengineering?
Well, actually,
I mean, that's
well,
a food source.
I won't go with climate change.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to upset Bernie Sanders. But, I saw the look on his face at the State of Union address. He was so disappointed and his tweet with climate change not being mentioned. But I did read an article and see some information that was based on science, that the North Pole has the 4 what do you call them? There were 4 circular vortexes. Yeah, sorry, it just dropped out for a second. I've got 5%, so I will drop out again. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, no problem.
It'll be you and Steve soon. But yeah, there were these polar vortexes, and there were 4 of them, and one was even forming to make a 5th one, but not quite a 5th one, and that's never been seen in history. And this is in conjunction with a rapid acceleration of the movement of the magnetic North Pole.
Right,
and
there's definitely reports on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then there was some other channeled information that was saying that the magnetic North is about to flip, and following in 2 years will be some sort of realignment of the North and South Pole to different regions. And I'm not buying into that at this stage, because I'm not buying into a story like that until I research a lot. That will mean massive tsunamis in a couple of years' time after the magnetic shift and part of the event and that. But yeah, these polar vortexes are real, and it's part of why you guys are getting the cold. Now, I would assume that it's not a product of climate change, because everyone knows that the climate change story of Al Gore was a narrative and a brainwashing that we all received for the common people to pay taxes for a fake story. And
climate
there it
tax.
is.
Yeah.
There it is. You see it? I'm screen sharing the USS Al Gore here. See it?
Wow. Okay.
See that?
Yeah.
Check that out. It's
that's amazing, isn't it?
That's the USS
it's amazing
Al
that
Gore.
something like that would present itself. It's almost like the divine hand is speaking to bring the truth out. Hey. But yeah, I believe that we're being conned to be taxed, and that is the whole narrative agenda of the climate change story.
Absolutely.
Now, yes, and scientists, but people will say to me, "Oh, but science says it's real." I said, "Yeah, but these science departments need funding, and if you, I haven't double checked, but I'm sure if you check, because we know how the stories all go. If you check to those who fund the science departments, they're probably bribing them and saying, we will only fund you if you go this way." So again, it's not true science.
Absolutely. I've also looked into this, and for every report you see that's apparently funded by the climate change group, that you can find another report saying it's not conclusive. Then you can find science that backs that up too. For instance, during the medieval period, it was 1 to 2 degrees warmer than it is today. So I mean, what does that mean? I mean, what did they have cars and stuff? I mean, I don't know. I mean, go figure.
Right. It's pretty consistent on the planet. We haven't had, it's,
well,
it's kind of
climate changes, and it's to do with the sun, as far as I understand.
I know, but I don't think it's going to go.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to just. It has to transition. It can't just in a short period of time, in 20 years, just suddenly, go into.
No, and we shouldn't be using fossil fuels, by the way. We don't need them. So that's the other thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I heard that what's happening with this. In history, it hasn't been recorded, but when this happens, what's happening now, it's supposed to be moving into a mini ice age. But we have another factor occurring that may change that up again, which is the ascension. So before you would have had, if we weren't moving through ascension, we would be moving into some sort of ice age. But the fact that we're going through an ascension and an event that's about to occur as well.
An energetic event. Yeah.
Ascension, I'm sure that will change it again, and I don't understand how, why, but that the ascension process will affect it as far as going through that process of normally becoming an ice age. So maybe it won't because of ascension. I don't understand. I don't know, but that's what I've looked into. Yes.
So what are they predicting in terms of the weather down there now? I mean, this flooding was historic, and it was just really upsetting to see the dead animals. But what are they predicting right now for you guys?
Well, we've had the heat waves. We've had some record highs in the 40s, like 44, 45.
Celsius, yeah.
Yeah, Celsius. So that's like 113 or something Fahrenheit, 111, 12, 13, something like that. But we've also had very extreme colds already. It was up in Bundaberg, North Queensland, we had a 44. Mm-hmm. And then that evening, I was up in Mount Kosciuszko, near Kuranda, which is this road that goes from Tumut across to Cooma. And I was up there on the high plains in the middle of the night working through a night shift, and we got -2 indicative on the vehicle we were in. The grease was freezing, and -2 was nothing.
Yeah, but that's a high altitude. What's the altitude there on Kosciuszko? What's the altitude?
1,500 meters, 1480 to 1,500. And yet Bundaberg
in the summer. Okay.
Yes.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty extreme down there. So look, I mean, we don't really understand what's going on with the pole shift, exactly how that's going to affect us either, but we're going to.
Let me add, that's also been now reported in the mainstream media, the pole shift. There was, I think it was New Scientist or something, had an article just the other week. And so once they start warning us through a couple of articles in sort of mainstream magazines, then you sort of take creed and understand that, yeah, maybe there is something to it. And the North Pole has shifted so massively already. I've been following it. It moves around every day.
Right,
so it's, you know, the pilots have to change their coordinates to measure true magnetic north. It's changed a lot. Yeah. So there is movement happening.
Yeah, definitely.
There's movement happening around Tim right now too.
Yeah, he's going to the beach.
People coming and going and walking past. People got their phones. People got torches. It's a very, very interesting environment to be in. But vehicles are working. Batteries are working. You know, there's no radiation blast from a nuke.
No EMP.
Still working.
But Tim, it seems like such a long time. You're like 8 hours you've been going in there without power.
I was expecting 2 hours based on first world standards, and being Sydney, that's the thing where we have these speculative assumptions based on the society we think we exist in, based on the level of society. Like, I mean, not to say other places are worse, but I've been to places like Nepal where the infrastructure isn't so good, and they do have certain times in the day where they don't have power, and they notify you, you won't have power in this area for 3 hours. And they change that every day because they just don't have the means to stretch that electricity supply to everyone. But here, what has happened today is, I'll use that word again, it's exponential, and it's going to be a massive inquiry because you've got this company, Ausgrid. They're running around with their orange lights in all these emergency vehicles. There's been sirens. For the first 5 hours, we had people stuck in lifts. The fireys had to put this smoking, substation out. So it's very, very intense and extreme, and yet at the same time, it feels very organic and natural, and there's something special in the air. I mean, I know a lot of people will be disappointed that they can't watch, whatever they're watching on their TVs, but there's a real organic sense here. And even the birds are out. Like, the birds know the power's out. But we still have the Wi-Fi, and we still have the phone signals. So we're still being irradiated to some extent. But
yeah, no chance of that going down, huh?
Yeah. It seems to me, when talking about polarities, the polarity itself, and there's an idea of when.
Oops, we lost Tim again.
He's gone. So what I'm surprised is that the telephone companies must have their own power supply. It's just incredible. We just didn't know that. Maybe it's for emergency services. I wasn't aware of that. But there you go.
Well, you know why. I know why. I have a feeling because they're using radiant energy to power their cell phone towers. They're using Tesla Tower. Now think about it, Steve. They've got the towers up there. They're quite tall. They're definitely harvesting energy from the environment. Are you kidding me?
They're giving out energy, I tell you what. They're giving out radiation.
And that's the mechanism that they use to broadcast frequencies, broadcast microwaves, broadcast cell phones, so they use it for GPS. Are you kidding?
Sure.
They're using it to target individuals. Well, so sure, that's not.
Well, he's talking during a power outlet. Yeah, so it's amazing. It's amazing.
Exactly.
Anyway, let me get back to what's going on in Europe.
Please.
Look, all right. So we've got the yellow vests. That's indicative, and I'm proud of the French that they're standing up, and they're getting their hands blown off. They're getting blinded by these police. It's just horrific what's going on down in some of the streets there. So look. What I'm also reading here, which is very surprising, is there's a resurgence in the articles in the mainstream press about gold. So gold is becoming a theme again. I'm seeing it recurring across the board. You see occasionally these articles explaining, and they interview hedge fund managers who talk the truth, and they say, well, everything's in a bubble. Gold is one of the only assets that's maintained value. What do you call it? Real estate's in a bubble. So they're talking the truth, and that's once they start doing that, it's been my experience that something's about to happen. Now, also, there's been talk on the internet, which across the board as well, about the world coming onto the new gold standard, whatever that means, whatever price that'll mean. I'm sure you've got something to say about that too. So it all seems to be converging. The information's converging with the mainstream and the alternative media. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, President Trump, I would say, cryptically tweeted, something about the gold standard last week, and this was.
What did he say exactly? What did he say?
Well, I'll have to find the tweet. I'll have to
Okay.
find the tweet, and I will look for it. Look, why don't you? Can you give us an idea? Now, you travel a lot through Europe, Steve. That's pretty much what you spend most of your time doing, and. You travel a lot through Europe. Aside from France, tell me what's going on with the yellow vests or anywhere else. And because I see, Q just posted some pictures of some people in different countries, and I can screenshot.
Well, I've seen that's right. I've seen photographs mainly from Twitter. The Twitter feeds haven't been completely censored, but you see them in Spain, in England. I've even seen some in Austria, just small. Germany as well. I've seen them. I've seen photos. I haven't been there, but I've seen photos of the yellow vest. So people are catching on. It's basically become a symbol for protest against unjust government, globalism, you could say, if they understand it or not.
The rejection of the New World Order, which we've been hearing about a lot. Okay, so here's the GoldFish Report Twitter page, and of course this is from one of the rallies. The president just had a rally recently again in El Paso, and it was interesting what happened there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But
that's in Madrid, I believe, or
this
in
is Spain. Yes, this is in Spain, and these are the people coming out. This is that was misrepresented. I think. I think that protest was about the Catalonian. There are 12 people. 12 people that are going to be tried. Look, I'm not sure. I've heard many reports, different conflicting reports as to what that protest was about. I'd like to speak to somebody who was there till I can say who that is. Very good.
I'm not sure if that's correct how it's being reported.
Well, you know what? Whatever it is, Steve.
The people aren't happy.
The people came out in numbers. Okay.
They did.
The whole point. Look how many people.
I agree with you.
I'm going to play this video. I'm going to turn the volume.
Massive. Look,
there's some celebration because you can see that there was music.
Well, they're all waving the flag, the Spanish flag. So there's nationalism going on. Yeah.
There was music like it was a parade or something, but they are uniting, and this is the bottom line: is that people are going to come together and unite. This is what I wanted to share, but I also
I'm going to be in Spain in a couple of weeks. I'm going to ask people there. I'll tell you. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So. That was the first one. Now I wanted to also share this this recent Q post because I've shared this before. I talked about it on previous reports. Here we have a recent Q post that highlights Finland love Q Anon, UK Q please. So this is definitely
Scottish flag. That's the Scottish flag. That's the third one. Yeah.
Okay, so the third one. So this is really what's happening in the world. This is the Great Awakening. And, I think they should be really proud because what's going to happen now is they're going to retake control of the narrative of the mainstream media. And where did I put this?
Well, I agree completely. I think it's absolutely necessary because people have been misled, lied to, and brainwashed, essentially. I sent you that link of, what's that guy's name, the Spanish KGB defector who was in the propaganda ministry from '84. I mean, he talked about softening young minds, takes 15 years to soften a generation, and then they're basically pliable. Even if you present them with the truth afterwards, they won't believe it. So they're so indoctrinated, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah, this is exactly what's happening in the United States. People, it's sad. What a successful PSYOP experiment this has been. A real demoralization of people where they don't even know what their morals are. They don't even know.
Demoralization.
This is called identity politics as well. I mean, this is social engineering at its best, folks. So, but this is what's happening.
So that's what we need to do. We need to help people to get out of their slumber, to get out of the demoralized state of not seeing what's in front of your face. So we need to help. I mean, look, it's difficult. Believe me, I've almost come to arguments about the people that just don't want to see, don't want to understand that there could be an alternative story to what we've been fed all these years.
Well, this is the purpose of why Winston on my Country Roads reports would talk about those riddles, because there was always a solution you didn't think of, like the one about, do you remember? So let's just give people an example of how you need to think differently about things. So Winston gave this one riddle, and he said, there's a guy who lives on the 22nd floor of a building, okay? He takes the elevator down to the first floor or the lobby, leaves, and I guess goes to work, whatever, comes back, takes the elevator back up to the 15th floor and walks the rest of the way up. And Winston said, how come? And you and I said the same thing, Steve. We said because we thought he wanted the exercise. And the reality was that he said the guy was a dwarf and he couldn't reach the 22nd button. And so I thought, I never thought of that. Obviously, that was like, I would never think of something like that.
Well, we have to think tangentially. We have to think out of the box. That's right.
There are solutions that we just aren't even they're not on our radar. Exactly. But this is what's happening. Okay. What's happening is the mainstream media made it their goal.
Well, it's Pravda. As Fulford said, I recommend that people watch this interview or listen to the interview with Simon Parkes and Benjamin Fulford just recently. I think it was last week or something. It's well worth watching because the mainstream media is dying. It's like Pravda during the last days of the Soviet Union. So they know they're going to die. People are not believing them anymore, and people are leaving in droves. They're flocking to the alternative media.
Right. Well, this is what happened. So we have some unconfirmed reports that the military tribunals that are going on, that there's been only certain three outlets, I should say, or individuals who are in the alternative media who have been granted access to the tribunals. So we'll see what happens at that point. So they're going to mainstream media, as General Flynn said, the digital army of digital soldiers, and this is what's changing the world. But this is what happened, okay? It's very clear that you can see that the mainstream narrative has been this. It's been to push the fact that but Donald Trump won the presidency because of Russian interference, okay? That's been shoved down our throats, right? Social media.
Pot calling the kettle black, the Democrats.
Exactly. Well, but, of course we know that there's nothing. And I just said in my report last week how I was in this hair salon talking to this little old lady who, was just so brainwashed by mainstream media. And I'm like, I report on the president. I said, do you still want to ask me what I think? I gave her the out, but I wanted her to realize that I was very knowledgeable on this.
It's tough for people. Cognitive dissonance. They can't cope with it.
She was complaining about the payments to Stormy Daniels. I said, that's really between him and his wife. It's not our business. I said, you didn't never do anything that you.
And that was before he was president. I mean, that's his business.
That's what my understanding. That's what I said to her.
Before he was president.
But she believed it. Okay. The second thing is social media has been the main vehicle for this interference. So that's the other narrative that the mainstream media has been pushing, that the Patriot social media sites are similar to Russian bot sites. So they really are trying to diss completely and social media. And then of course this is the other one, that both Trump and the Patriots have dangerous ideas and must be stopped. That is so liberal. That is so extreme left liberalism, which is what we're seeing in the mainstream media. Or
it could be right. It could be extreme right as well. I believe they're the same.
Well,
extreme right.
No, the extreme right.
We have to be sensible. We just have to be sensible.
I'm going to tell you, I don't see that much extreme right here. I think there's rhinos. I think there's Republican and name.
It does exist. It does exist.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying that it's not. It's not. No, it's not as polarized as it was. It really isn't. So it doesn't seem that way to me where I'm sitting. Okay, and I report on politics all the time.
But Louisa, the labels don't interest me. It's what the truth is and what we actually believe in. What is our moral compass? Do we want freedom for humanity? Do we want control by a few, controlling the masses? That's what it's about. It's not about left or right or labels. I think labels are mean.
No,
They will
but
culturally remain.
I understand that for you and me, but for the sleepwalker, it's still their reality. And so for them,
But that has to change.
I know, but it's not going to change overnight. So what I'm saying is that, what we saw, what you just said, we saw this during the State of the Union address, where the extreme. This is what's sad. These women have all.
That was theater.
That is absolute disgrace, if in my opinion, that all these female representatives who should be proud representing women have been there, you saw the comment, you probably saw it on Twitter, where the one representative was up there clapping, by herself, and the one sitting next to her says, "Watch your ass."
Evil looks, yeah.
No, you could read her lips.
Right. I didn't see
you could read her lips. You knew what she was saying. And you know what? This is the Gestapo, okay? And this is who infiltrated our country. There is an enemy within here. You can call them whatever you want to call them.
There's no doubt about that. It's all about control.
There's an enemy within, and it's called the deep state, and it exists in every country. And they were all working to collude to really destroy humanity. No kidding. No kidding. And so that's really what was happening. But what's happening now is there's going to be this big boomerang effect, where now the whole Q, you're going to start seeing a reversal in all of this mainstream stuff. Because why? Because their first one failed. Their first one failed about the president and Russian interference. There's nothing. Nothing has been revealed.
That's right. That's just been announced. It was a whole big nothing burger. That's
so
right.
What's happening, Steve, is they're exposing themselves. That's what it's all about. And but that was the plan from the beginning. Yeah.
True. By the same token, I mean, I've been following this Q thing as well. I take all information on board, and you sift it through, and you see what's true. Yes, Q argues there've been firings in the FBI, DOJ. There've been removals of power. There's a lot going on, and as we've discussed before, the military option has been for the soft coup rather than for a bloodless coup rather than rioting in the streets. So they don't want to shock people who don't understand what's been going on. They don't want people to come out and murder their neighbor because they believe in something else. They want to act through a propaganda war to educate as much as they can till the point comes where they can't hide it anymore. That's what I feel is happening. I hope that's happening. I want to see things happening faster. It's like watching grass grow, paint dry for us. So we just want things to happen finally. But I agree. I don't want riots in the street anywhere. I don't want people getting hurt. In France, people are getting seriously, permanently damaged or dead. So I don't want that to happen in the States or here or anywhere. So let's hope that the Q's right. That whatever these people are, this group that's apparently behind Trump, will move forward in the most judicious manner to avoid bloodshed. Let's help, as you're doing a wonderful job, is waking people up as much as they can to soften the blow when it finally happens. I mean, can you imagine if they suddenly did martial law? There'd be riots in the street. You'd have bloodshed everywhere because most people wouldn't understand still.
Well, that's one of the reasons I did the bullet points, because in this presidential powers, when he initiates an emergency, a national emergency, martial law is going to be.
It's an option.
It's an option, and it doesn't have to be, but it certainly can be. Tim, we see you there. Are you back with us? You let us know when you're back. What do you think about Venezuela? What's going on in Venezuela, Steve?
Well, that's a tough one. I do see the oil being the goal.
I managed to...
Oh, are you there, Tim? I think he's on a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, I'm still here. I might just be cutting in and out.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, wait until you get your... Okay.
Yeah, wait till you get stable. Anyway, I believe that in Venezuela it's oil. You can... it just seems like look, Trump's got some strange people in his administration. Bolton, the Hawks. It's very strange. Some things just don't add up to me there. So let's see. I don't agree that the United States should necessarily intervene in another country's political process, even if I don't agree with it. But it's let's see. I'm not on the ground there. I don't know. But I just don't agree if they want to intervene there. It's not right. They have to sort out their own problems.
Tim, are you back with us? Tim, can you hear us?
I think so. Yeah, are you hearing me?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit. Yeah, it's not a very strong signal at the moment. Keep trying though. We'll see what we could do. What do you think?
Yeah, just continue, and if it works, it works. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Tim, what do you think of what's going on in Venezuela right now? Is there much talk about that down under there in Sydney?
I think Steve covered it. Yeah, it's about the oil, politics and oil. Yeah, I don't have any other information at the moment to add to that. There was some footage of some troops turning up on some beaches. Did either of you see that and have some information about that?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I did see reports of it, and I did see images of it. So basically, if the United States wants to export, if we want to have these trade deals and we want to export this oil that Trump claims we have this massive amount of now, you're not going to want China or Russia to get control of Venezuelan oil, which is what they have right now. So it just seems to me that he has no one to export it to, because apparently China is not that resource rich when it comes to oil and things of that nature. So China is a huge importer of oil. And as a result of that, you see China and Russia down there trying to vie for those oil rights. It's kind of sad, because the reality is, I think Trump knows this too. I mean, just released the patents on the radiant energy that Nikola Tesla had discovered and was using.
Yeah, you'd kill the oil industry straight away. Just do it. Just release the technology. Simple as that.
What do you think about that, Tim?
I agree. I'm sure there would be some sort of impact, sudden impact from that, just like a heroin addict going off their addiction cold turkey. Because I know the world's addicted to oil as far as our technology. But I'm all for going off instantaneously. I'm also for going off it in a period of 5 years, but anything longer than that, if they were going to sit down and stretch it out for 20 or 30 years, I think that's getting a little bit ridiculous.
Look, I've seen one of these. I've seen one of these vehicles. I've seen one.
Sim and all that is going to happen. I think that will cover the gap of the collapse to the global economy from the if we shut. Go on.
Okay, we're having trouble with Tim's audio. Sorry, Tim, we're having some trouble with your audio over there.
Right, okay.
Listen, the oil industry is an intrinsic part of the global economy. It will change the power structure globally, right, to eliminate it. I understand that, and in order to avoid global conflict, possible global conflict due to a destabilization of when removing the oil industry, that has to be done in an orderly manner. But I don't see enough happening at all. This soft option, this crap option with the hybrid cars and whatever. The thing is, I've seen this technology. Yeah. I've seen the TR3 in the sky. I've seen 3 lights hovering in the sky in the clouds, stationary. I've seen this vehicle, and this vehicle is obviously not using fossil fuels. And so they've had the technology. Release it. Simple as that.
Right. Well, we don't really know if they're ours, Steve, but okay, let's
this one is pretty much ours. But the technology's there, and people have access to it. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that, Tim, what do you let's see how your audio is doing. Are you there, Tim?
Testing 1, 2, 3. Am I here in real time?
Okay,
yes, you are.
Yeah, your voice is digitizing though, so it's not a very strong connection. So we're kind of hearing every other syllable of your words. So I know you're doing your best. Anyway,
I've got another 5 minutes, guys. So let's slowly. If Tim's got that audio, let's hear some more commentary.
Well, where do you think it's going? What would you guys like to see happen right now? Do you think that give us some hope. What do you think? Can you see anything positive moving along, Tim?
I think he's gone.
No, he's there. Tim?
I feel, I'll talk, yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
That, I'll talk slower.
It's not necessarily going to help.
It's like,
Okay.
like sorting through molasses.
It feels like there's an...
Go ahead. Can you hear us, Tim? Poor guy. He's really
worth it, or do you want me to just... I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Try it now.
We can hear you now.
Okay, we apologize.
There is a massive shift occurring right now. Yeah.
Go ahead, keep going. There's a delay. That's what's going on. It's okay. There's a delay going on. That's what's going on. Are you there? How's that, Tim? Is that better?
I've stepped out of the car.
Oh, that's much better.
Is that any better?
Oh, completely. Yes. Yeah, totally better. Okay.
I moved feet from the car.
Okay, we're going to just close up. Yeah. Oh, jeez. Sorry. Yeah, we lost you. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Tim,
this power out.
Yeah, it's not a problem, Tim. It's okay. Sorry about that, mate. And look, we're going to be wrapping this up. If you want to try to just give us whatever signs of anything positive that you see going on right now.
Do you want sign language, or will I talk?
Morse code.
However it works.
Well, I can't see him, so sign language is not much good.
I can see him.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you know sign language?
I'll give it one more go. Yeah.
I know the basics.
One more go. So, there feels like there's an incredible shift occurring right now. It feels very expansive. It's very triggering. All sorts of stuff is coming up to the surface. It feels like there's a massive push. And then I received information that around March is possibly something pertaining to the event, or an event to do with a heart space. And then you've got all the other stuff that's happening in 3D as well. That's supposed to be happening around the end of this month and going into March. So it feels like there's a very intensification occurring right now on many levels of experience. Time itself even feels like it's speeding up. Like in a 24-hour period, it feels like I'm trying to cram in 5 hours. It's as if being subject to time, but part of me that feels outside of time, witnessing myself, it's like 24 hours is now only 5 hours. So it feels like everything is rapidly accelerating to someone on the outside looking in at us in time. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you're upside down, right? No, makes perfect
I think it's a delay of 5 seconds.
on the Santa Ball Earth that we live on. Okay, folks. Well, Tim, now I agree. I think there's a lot moving, and I'm really I love Santos Bonacci. You have to admit, this whole thing about this round Earth is a little funny. Okay, so I don't really know how a pole shift is gonna, what it's gonna really look like. Steve says it's gonna look like a pancake flipping. Okay,
well,
so
according to the flat earthers, but I don't believe in that.
yeah, like a pancake. No, it's not a pancake. It's just a plane. Okay, so anyway, folks, thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. Sorry about your troubles today. We hope you get your power back on. Let us know. Send me a message, because this seems so unprecedented, like historic.
Sounds like you just leave it off. People are talking to each other. Just leave the power off for another day.
Exactly.
Get them out of the lifts, but leave it off.
Absolutely. People might actually stop walking into street posts and stuff, right? Walking down the street.
And get off their phones.
Looking at a bright screen, talking to someone in Washington or New York or wherever you are. Yeah. So.
Yeah, aside from live streaming, exactly. But at least all you guys down there can definitely actually discover who your neighbors are. Maybe you should go meet them. You know, because we're always on our devices. We don't even hardly socialize. I mean, it's crazy.
So what do you see for the future, Louisa?
Yeah, there's been people.
Oh my gosh, the future.
Louisa?
Yeah. Are you there? We can hear you. We can see you, Tim. We can see you. Steve, I'm going to let you go, and then I'll go last because they want to hear from you. They hear from me all the time.
Okay. Well, the quickening I felt sort of a few years ago, I don't know, it's a bit less now myself, this time thing. I feel there's more time now somehow. I don't know, I feel it differently over here. But the future, I'm just hoping that more people wake up. I hope there will be a 100th monkey effect where suddenly we reach a tipping point in the population understanding things and opening their eyes to the rubbish we've been fed, and will suddenly demand a change. And I see the spark of that in France at the moment. I believe that the Brexit movement, whether they understood it or not, had more to do with anti-globalization and powers from an unelected group in Brussels than anything else, whether they knew it or not. And I think that we're witnessing actually the beginnings of a spring revolution against the old guard, and people are talking about things that they never would have talked about before. I see slowly articles talking about global control, the Chinese infiltration of our communications networks. Huawei, for instance, that's being openly written about here as being the NSA and the Huawei spying on the populations. That's people are aware of that now, and it's being openly debated. That wouldn't have happened 10, 15 years ago. People just didn't know. So whether it's so incremental that I think it seems painfully slow to people that have studied this for a long time. But I think for people that have not been exposed to this information before, it's quite earth-shattering. So I'm not a judge of it as to the pace, because for me it's all too slow. But I think for many people it's happening very rapidly.
Well, I think many countries are in great financial crisis. We can see what people are. You're right. It is a revolution. I think they want to avoid that in the United States, and I think that
they want to avoid a bloody revolution.
Right, but what you're saying, well, and it is bloody, as you're saying. We see pictures of it. It looks like they were UN troops that were placed in there to be provocateurs. They're the ones who are actually committing the violence, not the yellow vest.
It's the old problem, yes.
It's not the yellow vest protesters, of course, because we know they have no
Antifa was involved.
They have no weapons. Yeah. But there are reports that George Soros has been arrested and is being held in Switzerland, and I don't know.
Let's see the evidence. Let's see the evidence.
I know. I'm just saying.
I like the story, but let's see the evidence.
I'm just saying there's been reports. I can't say I can.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I'm not confirming it. Yeah. You know, I've heard other reports that he's been killed. I mean, you know, we have reports he's been dead for many years. I mean, you know, we don't know. It's like
he's a clone, you know, whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that he's a main archon, you know, whatever. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, and so there's a transition, and Trump, as you know, is really leading this global transition. We're starting here. He wants peace. He doesn't want it to end up like this. But if we do declare a national emergency, look, there has to be more for the people. That's simply put. You got to the biggest welfare recipients on the planet are the royals, aren't they? And what are they giving to the people? I mean royals in any country.
Sure.
They're taking from the people, and what are the people getting in return?
Well, it's always been like that. It's always been like that. They've thrown the crusts, let them eat cake. You know, thrown them just enough to keep to be subsistent. We've moved into a new age in the last since the Industrial Revolution, where the standard of living has been raised for the common man generally, but it's not. We're still living in debt, and we're still slaves to the debt system. That has to change.
Well, that's debt slavery. Well, we have these changes coming. President Trump is trying to, a gold
standard. If that's true, that's the beginning, because that's the end of funny money.
Well, this is what I'm getting at. We have to end the
Yeah.
Fed, the Federal Reserve, who's printing, who hijacked, who's essentially counterfeiting our money because they're not a federal agency. They are
Giving money to
private.
themselves
They're a
and their
private. The
cronies.
Federal Reserve's a private corporation with its own board of trustees and its own board of directors. So they have hijacked. They are the central bankers, and they hijacked the whole central banking system. They are printing everybody's money. And the thing to do is what they did brilliantly was, the alliance got together, created the AIIB, and this is all with the Chinese. Our understanding, Steve, is that the Chinese elders have been behind this entire transition, that the AIIB, the BRICS, the SIPS transfer system, this is all part of creating.
I hear that everywhere. That's basically across the board. You're right, yeah.
They created a parallel financial system so that it could operate and make the old system obsolete. And that's really brilliant. I mean, if you're trying to think about how to get rid of the Fed, when every time somebody's tried to get rid of the Fed, they've either been assassinated or their country was decimated and destroyed. And then they made money off of that because their currency devalued. And then when they went in to rebuild the country, the currency revalued higher and they made money on the spread. So, it's all about money, and we have to stop this. It has to end.
And the constant wars that we're
Every country, right? But you see that China's behind everything. China's so into Africa right now, and they're in everywhere, and they're in there. Improving infrastructure, major infrastructure projects in Africa, and also they owed China a lot of money. I mean,
they're buying assets and resources with the funny money that they're getting from the state.
So China is doing like the silent takeover of the world. That's like my opinion.
Yeah, I don't agree that they should become the new daddy on the block. I believe that there should be a balance of power in order to avoid dominance by one group.
Well, everybody else was busy fighting wars. China was there building bridges and making friends. China is behind everything on this planet right now. I mean, that's my opinion.
Well,
and they're quietly behind it. It's like a quiet. They've always been out for, they've always had imperialistic ambitions, and they decided to let the enemies destroy themselves while they go around and make friends with people and build bridges, loan money to people, and then take assets from those places in exchange or in lieu of repayment. If that's how they're doing it, asset recuperation, whatever. But it just looks like that there are positive changes. We know that the changes are such that we have President Trump in office trying to make these changes regarding the financial system. We know that, and I spoke with, I was there with Secretary Mnuchin and, of course, Larry Kudlow at the White House, and they were talking about what these trade talks were like and how things were going. They talked about, an artificial intelligence system. They didn't go into much detail, but we know that's the quantum computer financial system, the quantum financial system, the QFS, and that's going to be taking over. President Trump just yesterday signed into law a bill on being ahead of the world in or making America, dominant in terms of artificial intelligence. And I wasn't really happy about that, but they want to promote AI.
Well, AI is there, and as Putin said, who controls AI will control the world. And I believe the military already has their own system. The US military has their own highly advanced AI. What I'd like to say finally is that I think that humanity needs to wake up to the fact that we're all one race. We're from planet Earth, and as soon as disclosure hits, I think people will see that humanity in another country, we're all brothers. Rather than trying to dominate each other and have these little infights to control resources or whatever, it's all nonsense at the end of the day, because we need to move forward as a planet, as a human race, rather than seeing political borders. So I think that is the ultimate goal that humanity needs to wake up to, because we're not alone in the universe, and we just need to take care of the planet and move forward as a race.
We are Earthlings. That's what we are.
Yes, and people forget.
We are native to Earth.
Forget it or don't even realize it. Yeah.
Well, you know what? That was part of the great. Isn't this not the grand experiment, Steve? Where we were all in this duality consciousness, and since consciousness is really it's evolved. We're awakening. People are awakening. to what was hidden. This is what the Bible calls the apocalypse. So the revealing of what's been hidden, or behind the curtain, so to speak. So this is what's happening. I do think that there's positive things. I do think that if it goes too slow, it will not remain positive. If it goes too slow, there will be.
The process could be hijacked as well.
Right. And that's my only concern, is that overall, am I optimistic? Yes. Will I live? Will it go? Will it be efficient enough so that I will see the changes in my lifetime? I hope so. But, it's gone on, the delays. And
we need benevolent people to be involved in the process, not just people with small egotistical aims. Benevolent people who think of the global or the collective, at least.
Exactly. So this is what I see. I see that there could be problems if it goes too slow. There could be irreversible problems if it goes too slow. That's how I see it. That's my opinion. For whatever that.
Well, we have to trust that the people who are pulling the levers at this stage know what they're doing. So it's a balance act. It's a balance act.
Trust the plan.
All right. Well, let's see what they do.
Okay, Steve. Well, look, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah.
It was good to see you. Glad you're back on GoldFish Report. And I know. I'm sorry about Tim. He's going to have to. We'll have to reschedule and do this again when he has his power restored. You can't believe it's been 8 hours. They have had no power. So I don't know what that's all about. It's almost like there's
supposedly a first world country down there.
I know, right? That's what he was saying, according to first world standards. So we're sorry. We're sorry we lost Tim, but we want to thank Tim for being with us. We want to thank you so much, Steve, for being here. It was good to see you again. Yeah. And to our viewers, we'll be back to report more on what's happening. Glad to have our GoldFish Report team around the world telling us firsthand on for their firsthand experience of what's going on and what's life like. What are they experiencing as a resident of a different country, someplace else on the planet, what's going on. And we hope to have more people of other countries join us. So email us. If you're getting this report and you're in Africa, or you're in somewhere in Asia, or you're somewhere in Europe or South America, give us a call, or not give us a call. You can't call us, but you can email us. Email us at the GoldFish Report at gmail.com, the GoldFish Report at gmail.com. And let us know if you want to join our program sometime, because we'd love to hear from you and what's going on, because we're all digital soldiers. It's citizen reporters, and this is what's going to change the world. So, Steve, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll be back soon. And this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.